Hélio went through a near-death experience after a heart procedure. While in the ICU, he had what he describes as an extraordinarily real vision. Although he can't pinpoint the exact moment it happened, he clearly remembers every detail, as if he were alive in another dimension. But one question has stayed with him until today. What did those people walking toward a distant light mean? Was it a transition to the place we go in the future? Hello, I'm Marcus, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here to Beyond the Life We Live. I hope you feel at home and take in the lesson from the story we're about to tell. By the way, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it's very important for us, helping us bring new and impactful stories to you. Hélio was a man who always lived his life calmly. At 70 years old, he had already faced typical challenges of age, such as health problems and physical limitations. However, a scheduled heart surgery became an unexpected turning point. He knew the procedure was delicate, but he trusted the doctors and the possibilities for recovery. His family stood by his side, supporting him and eagerly waiting for the result, believing everything would go well. On the day of the surgery, Hélio was taken to the hospital with the certainty that he would return home soon. When he entered the operating room, the doctors and nurses quickly worked to prepare him. Soon he was sedated, and the surgery began. Everything seemed to go as expected, but what Hélio couldn't imagine was that during the time he was unconscious, he would experience something completely beyond his understanding. Still intubated in the ICU and surrounded by machines, although he didn't exactly know what was happening, he has a memory as vivid as any real memory of that moment, which was the beginning of his near-death experience. He found himself in a strange place, unlike anything he had ever experienced before. There was a sense of calm in the air, and ahead of him he saw figures walking slowly toward a distant light. Hélio, without thinking much, decided to follow them, driven by curiosity. As he walked behind these people, he noticed there were no sounds, no conversations, just silence and the presence of that light. But that didn't matter. What caught his attention was what might be beyond the light. He didn't know exactly what was happening, but the serenity he felt seemed to motivate him to keep moving toward the light. When he was finally about to reach the entrance, something changed. The people started to disappear, dissolving into it. Hélio, who was also approaching, almost reaching this portal, suddenly saw everything fade away. There was no transition, just sudden darkness. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the air conditioning unit on the ceiling, with nurses and doctors attending to him, and it was at that moment that he realized he was alive. To him, the experience was spiritual, because he believes that if he had crossed that door, he wouldn't be here to tell his story. Recovered over time, Hélio began to reflect on what he had lived, trying to understand what it meant. What impressed him most was the feeling of serenity he experienced throughout the entire journey. There was no fear, no anguish, only a sense of peace and lightness, as if he were in a familiar and welcoming place. The lack of sounds made the experience even more silent, almost as if time had stopped. He followed the people without hurry, without restlessness, just with a calm curiosity about what might come next. Unlike other people who go through similar experiences, Hélio didn't feel like he was out of his body or disconnected from the physical world. To him, everything seemed natural, as if it were a continuation of what he already knew, without any separation between what is physical and what is spiritual. He didn't see himself from the outside. There was no feeling that his body was elsewhere, as if he were observing himself from an external perspective. He was simply there, walking alongside the people with a sense of belonging, as if he had always been there. The figures guiding him were unknown. What impressed him the most was the clarity with which he could recall every detail of that moment. The vision, the colors, the light, and even the feeling of walking through that terrain were etched in his mind with impressive sharpness, something he knew wouldn't happen if it were just a dream. For Hélio, this experience wasn't like dreams usually are. He deeply felt that it was real, much more real than any dream he had ever had. The feeling that something beyond the physical world was being revealed to him made him question what truly exists after life, even though he didn't have a clear explanation for what had happened. Although he didn't experience the vision of his own life, as other people report when going through a near-death experience, Hélio didn't miss that. To him, what mattered was what he saw in that moment, and the feeling that there was something beyond life. The door, the visible boundary before him, seemed to indicate a point of transition, but for some reason, he didn't cross it. Something prevented him from moving forward, and when the figures disappeared and the light went out, he found himself back in reality, with his mind full of questions and the feeling that somehow something great and mysterious had been revealed to him.